there was a world where you could have a hamburger that was 450 calories and 45 grams of protein, and it was just about as good as any other hamburger. This hamburger is actually tremendously good because we're leveraging all of the flavors that go into the traditional hamburger that you would get, but we're using slight modifications to bring the calorie level down, bring the protein level up without having to go clinically insane. You won't even be craving a burger after this. So let's make this, shall we? We're gonna start by making up a quick low-calorie burger sauce, prep our veg and meat, and finally cook and assemble the burger of our dreams. You could still have a burger, be on diet, and have a sauce. You just have to be cautious what you put in that sauce. 1 tablespoon of a light mayo. I found that light mayo is really the less flavorful mayonnaise. They've replaced some of the oil with water. You could sub this for yogurt, but you would then have the acidity of that. There's many subs. Just think outside the box. Then we're gonna do 1 tablespoon of yellow mustard and then 2 tablespoons of sriracha. I didn't do ketchup because ketchup has so much sugar in it and it adds a lot from a carbohydrate standpoint. So I did sriracha just to lessen the load, but still have tons of flavor. Now we're gonna add a little bit of salt to taste. Touch of fresh cracked black pepper, a little whisk until homogeneous, and you have a sauce. That sauce should make just enough for 4 servings. Now the toppings, we're keeping it simple. Whenever you add things like tomato, lettuce, etc., you're introducing water without a ton of flavor. So you're diluting the overall flavor of the burger. So we're keeping it simple with just pickle and onion, but it's important how you cut these. So the pickle, I want whole, try to find small ones because we're not gonna slice it into coins, we're gonna slice it lengthwise. I wanna keep those a little under a 1/4 inch thick, like this. We do lengthwise for the sake of even coverage. If you do coins, that's fine, but you're gonna end up with little splotches that aren't covered with pickle. I want the whole burger covered with a piece of pickle. So those are our pickles. Now for the onion, super important that it gets cut as thinly as humanly possible. You can do a yellow onion or a sweet onion. Cut the top off. And then I actually want you to keep this thing intact. So we're gonna run a line from the skin, small incision at the top, running all the way to the bottom. You're just gonna peel that first layer of onion off. I always peel the first layer off. The first layer oftentimes is like kind of combined partly with the onion skin and partly with the onion itself, and also just, sometimes has yucky, poopy bits. So peel those off. You have a ready to use onion. You can cut this with a knife. There's nothing wrong with that. I prefer for this style of cut to use a mandolin only because it's easier to get it paper thin and super duper consistent. That's not to say that you can't do it with a knife, but your knife needs to be really sharp to do that. Pick your battles here, guys. First, we're gonna find our spot. The goal is to get the onion as thin as you can while maintaining its shape. So if you slice it and it falls apart and it's not a perfect ring, then it's too thin. So just little bumps until it's as thin as it can go, but it maintains that ring shape. And what you'll end up with is something kind of like this. These beautiful, incredibly thin rings. Good Lord, that is a spicy onion. Mother of God. Ugh. But they mound up really beautifully like this. Look at that. That just looks nice. The second trick is to take your onion, place it in a small container, and you go into the sink. And you're just gonna wash these very lightly. A lot of people will be like, oh, you're washing the flavor off. They're not gonna be flavorful anymore. You're being a wimp. Listen, if they're not sweet onion or red onion and it's yellow onion, you have a lot of sulfur and aggressiveness in those onions that are going to make them really spicy and almost kind of like farty. But if you give them a couple rinses, toss them in some cold water, you can throw in some ice to shock these too, and then drain it. These are going to be even crunchier. These are going to have even nicer structure, and they're going to have a cleaner flavor. Optional, but recommended. The meat. Before we touch this is the thing that's make or break, because normally you would use an 80% or a 75% lean patty. The reason why burgers are great is because it is almost impossible to f them up because they have so much fat in the meat. This, on the other hand, is 96% lean. It is very easy to f these up. And if you don't cook these correctly, these burgers will suck ass. But I have good news for you. It's very easy to cook them correctly. This is 1.5 pounds of 96% lean ground beef. In order to get the macros the same that's on here, you'll have to use the same type of beef. First, we're gonna make sure that we measure them out. If you don't have a scale, have your butcher do this for you. The point is, we want balls that are about 3 ounces each. Wow, on the dot, 3.0 ounces. Eyeballed. Will we get it again? On the dot, 2 times in a row. I'm getting greedy now. Can we get a third? I feel like this is it. 2.8. Anyway, we're gonna get balls of 3 ounces. Once you have all your portions, you're gonna take your beef. This will leave you with exactly 2, 4, 6, 8 individual patties. Each burger is gonna contain 2 patties, which is 6 ounces of meat. That's gonna bring you to 45 grams of protein. You like that? I like that. So take all these and roll them into nice balls. They don't need to be perfect. Sometimes when I'm in a rush, I just kind of throw them together, but the better and more round they are, the more evenly they will smash. So just be aware of that. You do not have a lot of fat in these burgers, so they will get to weird shapes when you press them if they are not shaped evenly. That looks good to me. Balls of meat. We're almost there. It's that easy. Buns. Normally I would make my own, but to make the diet aspect and the counting of calories significantly more accurate and easier, we're using a bun that I actually use at home all the time whenever I'm on diet, which I am right now. The ones that I usually go for are the Dave's Killer Bread buns. Burger buns done right. I don't think that they're the greatest bun in the universe, but they're pretty darn good. And these are 160 calories for one bun. It's not bad. Are they as good as my homemade buns, or are they as good as like a brioche bun? Absolutely fucking not. But they are pretty decent for the caloric intake. When you're toasting these buns, you're gonna do it over medium heat on a plancha, a cast iron, a flat top, I don't care, medium heat. You cannot add butter to these without adding calories. So if you're trying to keep those low, you don't need butter to toast buns. You just need to go over medium heat and don't go too high. So take our buns, they're already halved for us, place them on your griddle, and just get them toasted now while you can before you assemble, before you start cooking your patties. All right, we're just gonna let those toast for like 2 minutes. Then after about a minute of dry toasting, they should be crusty. You're not gonna get as even of a toast on these because there's no butter like saturating the whole thing, but you will still get a nice crisp crust, which is really what you need. Flip those to the other side, and then I want you to toast both the bottom of the bun and the top of the bun. The other option, if you don't wanna toast these on a griddle and you wanna cook your burgers at the same time, these also fit in a toaster, so you can toast them in a toaster. You could brush the tops of these with butter. I might, for the sake of visuals, but that is not included in the recipe because that is not on diet. Thank you. Once all your buns are toasted, we are ready to cook our patties and assemble. To sear these, you will need some sort of a press. You can use the bottom of a pan or a pot. You can use a burger press like this, and you'll need a small sheet of parchment paper. Non-mandatory, recommended. This is a very well-seasoned flat top. You can also do this with a touch of spray oil. You could do it in a non-stick pan to prevent sticking. Just be aware that these will stick much worse than other pieces of beef, so make sure it's either well-seasoned or it's non-stick or something similar to that, just to make it cooking easier. This is gonna go directly on medium-high heat. You wanna hear this sound. That is a prepared and ready pan. So I'm gonna press this. That's one pressed. Salt, pepper, and then now our next one, press that as well, and then salt. So this is for one burger, 2 patties to a burger. Press them about 25% wider than this bun because they're going to shrink tremendously due to the lack of fat. So you want to kind of accommodate for that shrinkage. I know you're going to want a perfect Maillard. You will have to flip these earlier and get slightly less of a Maillard in order to keep them juicy. That is the important piece I was talking about earlier. They will dry out quickly. So get a little bit of a Maillard, but do not let them go dry. You can see the cook coming up through the burger. This burger is already like 65, almost 70% of the way cooked. So we need to flip it right now. Boom. Not as much Maillard. It is what it is. You can always go hotter to try to avoid it, but listen to me. I'm telling you, this is the secret to creating a really good low-calorie patty without it going dry. I'm going to cheese this 1 slice of American cheese per burger, not 2. I'm going to flip this one. We're gonna let that sear for about 1, maybe 2 minutes per side, no more than that. Okay, I'm turning off this side. This cheese is almost melted. Here I stack my patties on top of each other, and now to assemble the burger. First, you're going to take your toasted buns, sauce the bottom bun, add your sliced pickles. I actually trimmed them so they would fit the bun a little better. Some thinly sliced onion, your cheese patty. The last most important step is to sauce your top bun, about a tablespoon, and crown your king. The macro breakdown for a single serving is about 15 grams of fat, 33 grams of carbs, and 45 grams of protein. That's 450 calories. Not bad. I mean, this thing is juicy just looking at it, but how does it taste? Cheers. Honestly, you really can't tell that much of a difference, other than the fact that the patty itself is much more dense. Normally, you would get like this sort of oiliness that makes the common burger so great, but the ridiculous juiciness of that helps replace that tremendously. But the flavors are all identical. I mean, it tastes of beef. The American cheese is a really important element. You cannot take that away. Having that American cheese in there, plus the char on the beef and the deep, richy, beefy flavors carried by the juice. The sauce is a little spicy. It's a little sweet. It tastes mustardy, and it still has some of that creaminess. I mean, this tastes like a perfectly classic burger. If you serve this to anybody, most people would eat this and go, that's pretty dang good. And they would have no idea that they're eating a 450 calorie burger. Is it as good as the best smash burger in the world? Of course it's not. Having that fat makes a big difference, but this gets you like 90% of the way there. So if you're on a diet and you're just trying to just eat a little healthier, get more protein in your diet, but still enjoy a burger and without going insane like I am, this will help you tremendously. Click the link in the description, get the recipe, subscribe, see ya.